Believe, no, please don't be serious. I mean, you speak lots of bad words sometimes, especially on the national media, but don't treat me like an idiot. Can I just say this? I do believe in the right of Israel to exist, as much as I believe in the right of Palestine to exist. My concern is, I'm not a Muslim, I'm not a Jew, I'm not a Christian, I'm a human rights lawyer. I was asked to go to Palestine and to look at Palestine and to teach lawyers within Palestine. And the way I was treated whilst I was over there, what I saw, shocked me. And the more I read into the issue, the more I saw, I just thought it was unbelievable. The question is Israel right to do what it does in the West Bank, in Israel? Well, we've touched upon Operation Cast Away. Simply, there cannot be no explanation for that, but we have to put it into context again. It's important to put it into context. There was an election going on at the time for the Israeli Prime Minister. It was a general election. It was an election campaign where there was necessary and it needed to be seen to be tough. So Tzipi Livni, who was then running to be selected to be the Prime Minister, and her party, albeit that waters had been going from Gaza into some parts of Israel for many months preceding that, picked upon in the middle of an election campaign to launch a massive military attack with one of the strongest armies in the world, funded to the point of 3.5 billion in arms by the United States against the people of Gaza, killing over 1,000 people, destroying hospitals and schools and houses and infrastructure. When did it end? When did it finish? The day before President Obama was inaugurated. It was a political action. The lives of 1,000 people were destroyed to ensure, to hope to try to bolster an election campaign for a weak leader. Let's put it into context. Let's put it into history. Don't take it as an isolated fact. In West Bank, people are kidnapped, people are taken on a daily basis almost sometimes, put into courts, and I've been in those courts. They're not allowed to have representation by Palestinian lawyers because Palestinian lawyers don't have rights of audience. They're tried in front of military tribunals. Children who have touched stones, children are put in prisons for months, sometimes years. People are shot dead by snipers, through the head, through the heart, by snipers, by an Israeli army gun. Innocent people, maybe people on protests, maybe people saying we don't want you here, maybe people throwing a stone, well, they're shot dead. Cameramen, British journalists that we know about and we've seen in history are shot dead. What is the justification for that? If there is a terrorist force, if they want to go in for a terrorist force, there may be a way of dealing with it. But they don't. They don't do it rationally or justly. They go in there heavy-handed. They hit it like a sledgehammer on a nut to crush it. Why? Sorry, I had to wake you up. Why? Why do that? Because they can.
Okay, so from the description we just had, I believe we're of the assumption now that Israeli soldiers sent out each day for no reason to shoot journalists and some children in the head. This is, as I mentioned earlier, an irrational observation, and I admire human rights lawyers. I admire the profession. I sort of do worry that there's a sort of disinflated reality. I point to the Gaza war in particular example, because the idea that this somehow was a political stunt. Now, I was in Sderot 2 years ago, just visiting, and the rockets were coming over, 2, 3 a day. Every school, every house, every kindergarten, they have the world's first completely missile-proof kindergarten is protected. Hamas fire at the beginning of school, at the end of school, to try and hit as many children as possible. They also fire from the schools themselves, from orphanages, from mosques, designed to inflict the maximum amount of civilian casualties. By not doing anything, Israel is failing in its duty as a liberal democracy to defend its people, for which a government is elected. The idea that this was a political stunt is insulting, especially from a human rights lawyer. It's insulting because we elect a government to protect us, to defend our human rights, and to say it is not justified to defend the Jewish, the Arab, the black, the Ethiopian, the citizens of Sderot, who suffer every day, is an appalling thing to say. Now, if you draw a moral equivalence between that and military action to defend your people, then this is the irrational demonisation I was talking about, and not legitimate criticism.
Why when it comes to me? Okay, anyways, I have some charters and some information from Mr. Murray and Mr. Sam. It's from the IDF website and also from the Israel Foreign Affairs Ministry, because I've been hearing them crying about these so-called Palestinian rockets, but they forgot to say how many Israelis were killed by these rockets, and they forgot to give us some description about these rockets, and they failed also to give us some numbers about how many Palestinians were killed in retaliation or for these rockets when they were fired. It's less than 30 Israelis who were killed from 2005 to 2011 in this moment, according to the Israelis. And how many Palestinians were killed in return? Thousands of Palestinians were killed in return. But no one hears about that. All of us hear what Mr. Mark Regev and Ofer gentlemen are saying, and similarly we're having two nice gentlemen today are taking the same stance and are saying that these rockets, although these rockets are useless, and I myself criticize these rockets, and it's only nothing for us Palestinians. It's only bringing some more points to Israelis to maneuver when they see these rockets. It's nothing for us Palestinians. As for Gaza, I don't want to speak for you in terms of emotions or feeling, but I'd like to speak some facts, some reasons. Goldstone Report, John DeGott, United Nations resolutions, David Cameron, all you can imagine. Whom shall I count and whom shall I count? Desmond Tutu, Nelson Mandela, and all those big names. Everyone said Gaza siege should be lifted. And everyone said Gaza siege is immoral. And quickly now we will hear Mr. Murray saying, oh, Gaza is a paradise, as he said in BBC. Also he will say Gaza has a mall, but he will forget to say how we bring these materials for this mall. And he also will forget to describe this mall. I've been to that mall, and also I've been reading what the American and British media said about this mall. You know, it's like very small, two floors. It's not a mall, it's normal shops, but they have been directed to look like a mall. It's not a mall. It's filled with smuggled food and commodities from Egypt. It's full of all these commodities that we bring by tunnels. Okay, we have, as you know, more than 3,000 tunnels because Israelis have blockaded all the borders. And Mr. Murray maybe should tell you something that Amnesty or Human Rights Watch and OCHA have said before, or he should give you some numbers about how many trucks of food and commodities Gaza should have. Gaza was due to have more than 700 to 800 of the trucks of primary and secondary commodities on a daily basis. But since the siege, we get much less than this. I hope you speak in details about that. Regarding what is happening in the West Bank as part of this question, I just invite every one of you to go into the West Bank and you will experience this suffering. When you go from one checkpoint to another checkpoint, more than 400 to 600 checkpoints, fixed checkpoints, and literal checkpoints. And we hear the Israelis that said, as part of the peace process, they have removed something. They removed something, and then the other day they will find the Israeli soldiers coming with their patrols, taking another checkpoint. Indeed, what is happening in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip is showing how Israel is a country above law. This country is not abiding by any international law. This country has refused for long years, has refused the UN Security Council resolutions, and it has refused also the General Assembly and its resolutions that have affirmed in the UN Security resolutions on many issues. I don't want to be limited, but the Israelis have refused all these resolutions. I don't want to speak more about this. Maybe we'll jump into other points later on. Thanks.
Thank you. With all the dastardly tricks us employees of the Zionist superstructure are capable of, I didn't know that we could also conjure Mars out of thin air. The point I made, I think, on the program you're referring to, was that there is something very strange about describing the Gaza in the way that David Cameron did, given that, among other things, the standard of living among Gazans is higher than most parts of Turkey, than in most parts of the rest of the Arab world. I think that's worth noting at the very least. And it shows the shame which you can see in any Arab country to bring something like a decent economy to these countries, instead of running them as crime syndicate family dictatorships, as most of them are. Look, just very quickly, one of my friends was annoyed that I sniggered when he said that he agreed that Israel had a right to exist. I snigger because it's about the lowest thing you can say about something. If we were, say, discussing Pakistani politics, something I'm interested in, and talk might have a certain amount, Pakistan was created as a state in the same year as Israel. But say we were having a discussion tonight about Pakistani politics, who are you in favour of, who you prefer, which party, which president, and say somebody said that, I'd like to announce, I think Pakistan has a right to exist. You'd laugh at him. You'd think, what a maniac. That's been a defunct question for decades. It doesn't help at all that you happen to think that a state has a right to exist. Oh, great. Well, I agree with Pakistan's right to exist. Excellent. That gets us a long way forward in the discussion. And so I don't know why people compare Pakistan to Israel. The reason they do it, as the gentleman from the other side showed, was that, again and again, we don't even have rockets now. We have so-called rockets. So-called rockets, a particular new type of rocket that doesn't have the same effect, doesn't kill you if it lands on your head, doesn't cause the casualties they cause. The reason why you are hearing such poor stuff from the scientists is the following. They are not telling you the basic fact about what is happening on the ground. You were told that the Israeli army likes to, in Operation Cast Lead, bomb schools and hospitals. Do you think, or at least let me know, no, you may in this hall, why do you think it is that the Israelis went and bombed hospitals and schools, which on a couple of occasions, yes, missiles landed on them? Why do you think that was? There was a reason. It wasn't just a Jewish bloodlust for blowing up hospitals, okay? It was because the Hamas, which had been ruling the Gaza as a dictatorship for the last few years and still have cancelled the next elections, and nobody on the outside has mentioned that the Hamas will not have any more elections. They won't do the PA's elections in July. They said they're not interested in that. They're a one vote, one party, which murdered the other Palestinian party's members in the Gaza. You have to regard this as being important. If a state is being run by a terrorist group and murders the other people in the state, shoots them in the back and throws them off buildings, if they're Fatah Palestinian members, that is of some significance. And yes, the Hamas have a crucially different role in the world than the Israeli government or most democratic governments. Because the Israeli government spent, as this government would in this country if rockets were landing, not so-called rockets were landing on a regular basis, they would build bunkers for people to be in. They would build early warning systems for missiles. They would do all of these things. The difference between a good, legitimate, democratic government and the Hamas is that the Hamas uses schools as arms dumps. They do what the Hezbollah did in Lebanon. I saw it myself. They build an arms dump and then they put a school on the top of it. Do you honestly not know this? Do you not see it? Finally.
Show us.
Finally.
Show us, man.
There are plenty of examples.
You have to go back to joining the UN
Okay, we'll stop there, please. We're going to have questions now for the no panel, firstly. Questions for the no panel. Okay, just for there, please. But for this side. This side first.
No, I had a question.
Okay, anyone got questions? Okay, has anyone got questions for the no panel?